And it was many, many hours long presentations from all sorts of scientists and specialists who showed the committee various charts and graphs about BPA and total wind generation and what's in the air. And they talked about glucose levels, BPA and glucose levels in the human body, and issues about insulin and so on. And they showed charts like this, which talked about the impacts of BPA on rats and rat fur and the color of their fur. And they went on and talked about how BPA, bisphenol A, had been used. It's typically used in the linings of cans and in products such as water bottles and sippy cups and other kitchen plastics. And it has been linked to early puberty and reproductive harm. And so it was a very, very long presentation, very factual, very, very, very good. And so after that was done, they finished up, and the next person up was the lobbyist. And the lobbyist basically spoke for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes after the scientists and so on had spoken for many hours. And the lobbyist basically painted a picture, not of their argument about why BPA should not be banned in children's toys and children's products, but simply painted a picture of what they were going to say in ads and in marketing across the state if this committee decided that they should move forward with banning BPA. They painted a picture of this. And the message was going to be, now they want to take my children's toys away. And so what do you think? Do you think the environmentalists and the scientists won, or do you think that the lobbyists won? Both sides defined the message in their own terms, and in this case, the lobbyists won in about 5 minutes. A very strong, very value-laden, image-laden story that he told the legislators. So the big question then, did the environmentalists and the scientists learn? They sure did. They came up with a very, very different message and a very different presentation of the issue just a few years later. This effort started around 2006. By 2010, you began to see these kinds of pictures: children, babies, the message, baby's toxic bottle, leaching from popular baby bottles. And did they win? They sure did. So once they refined their message, what they ended up with eventually was Governor Jerry Brown signing the Toxin-Free Infants and Toddlers Act into law on October 4th, 2011. Message is a powerful thing. So since you can't see me, although I think some of you out there actually do know me, this is me. And this is a beautiful day. And I have chosen the picture that I want to show you of myself. And my question to you is, what am I doing? Simple question. Lisa, do you want to put the poll up?
Sure, I'll launch it right now.
Okay. So just want you out there to select one of the following, what you think I'm actually doing in this picture. Choose one. How are we doing out there, Lisa?
We've got just a few more people that are still casting their votes, so I'm just going to wait a few more seconds.
Okay.
All right. And here are the results.
All right. Interesting. I think when I've shown this to a live audience, riding my bike has been what most people guess. So, but the reality is, those of you who guess fishing with elephants, and this is not a photoshopped picture, were correct. And the reason I do this is because in the prior picture, I have chosen to limit my story to just me on a nice day in a situation that you may or may not recognize. I have framed the message to you. I have framed exactly what I want you to know about who I am and what I look like and what I'm doing. But the reality is something very, very different. I framed my message through a photograph. So let's look at another incident. This is a case that was real several years ago. And when I asked people to look at this picture, what do they think Obama is thinking? That's the president, obviously, at this point, and this was after the BP spill. He looks dejected, he looks concerned, he looks worried, and you couldn't really debate that. But the reality is this. This was a true picture on the cover of The Economist, and The Economist caught a lot of trouble for this, because in reality, he was not fretting necessarily about what was happening out there, but perhaps even just bending over and listening to someone who was shorter than him. What The Economist did was frame the debate by framing the message through a picture that they chose actually to Photoshop and make a different argument about what that picture was actually about. They framed the message. So when we think about how we think and how we receive messages, our mind is not a book. If I'm in a tent in Yosemite and it's early in the morning and I've just woken up, the last thing that is going through my mind in words is, gosh, what a great day yesterday. We got up early and cooked some breakfast by the campfire and then hiked for an hour in the pre-dawn light before we got to our destination, which was Mirror Lake, when there was no one there and the lake was still and I could get a perfect shot in the best light with no people in the background. That's not in my head. This is in my head. Our mind thinks in pictures. We do not think in words. We are not a book. Pictures can define your message. You can show charts to your board or to your council, your city council, about how many pipes might be clogged and how many pipes are old and not carrying the water they used to carry. Or you can show them a picture of the pipe and you can show them perhaps what happens if we don't fix those pipes. Pictures will remain in their heads much more strongly, and they will resonate much more with those who are hearing your message. And ultimately, framing your message tells your story the way you want it to be told. So I can frame taxes in which something is that the taxpayer needs to be protected from taxes, or I can talk about taxes as essentially a necessary evil that we all want because it supports what we all need. It's all in the way that you tell your story. It's all in the message. So how has that been done in the real world? Here are some pictures about water and organizations that have used those pictures to bring the message to you. So this is a young girl, a child, drinking water from a hose. Perhaps not the best way we want our child to be drinking water, but this resonates with all of us because kids do pick up hoses and drink water. And we want our water to be safe for them when they do that. So it's a very strong image. Here's another image for those of you especially who live on a coast. All right, billions of liters of pollution are flushed into our oceans every day. This is a very, very powerful image that uses a scare tactic, undoubtedly, but it is powerful in its own right and gives you a very, very strong message in one single picture. This is a very interesting picture about protecting our children and having clean air. Obviously, a lot of it is blue, so you see that blue and it draws you to it, but there's actually more here than just protecting children. There's a value and a strength in the lower left-hand corner, and it's about fathers and sons, fathers and their children. That resonates at an even deeper level to us, and it's not a mistake. They know what they're doing here. The story is about clean air, protecting children, and the bond between a father and a son. The picture that you see in advertising, the picture that you see in campaigns, is almost never a mistake. This is a very powerful image. A single can of dissolvent can pollute millions of liters of water. World Wildlife Fund. Very powerful, straightforward message. They could have showed you a chart. Instead, they show you something that you'll remember more likely into the future. Save water now for the next generations. I could simply say that, or I can show you this incredibly powerful picture. This is something that will resonate very, very strongly with all humans. And then finally, a little humor. Fecal coliform bacteria machine. Almost everybody can grasp loving the idea of a small puppy. It's a very, very cute puppy. It draws your attention to it. It's an image. We care about the puppy, and so therefore we're going to care about the message too. Pictures impart values if you use them correctly. So we're going to have another poll. We have an eagle here. Lisa, can you launch the poll? And I'd like people to just think about what value resonates with you when you see this picture. What value does the eagle symbolize?
Okay, I'm waiting on a few more folks to cast their votes.
All right.
All right, and at this time I will share the results.
Okay, pretty good. Patriotism and freedom. Freedom and patriotism. We got it. That's an easy one. We all know what we think when we see that eagle. But there again, an eagle in an advertisement or a campaign or a movement is never going to be a mistake. This is what it stands for. So let's move on to one that's a little bit more difficult. Lisa, do you want to launch the next one? What does this symbolize to you? Can you put up the there
Sure,
we go.
here comes.
Thank you. What value does this gun symbolize to you?
Wow, this is an interesting one. I'm going to
It
give it a
always
few
is.
more seconds.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and here are the results.
Yep. It's always interesting, this one. The importance of this is not that there are right or wrong answers. Okay, so we had 13% on self-reliance, 42% fear, 6% independence, 10% insecurity, and 29% freedom. The gun itself symbolizes any one of these values to the people that are in the audience. The trick for you, as someone who uses a picture, is to understand your audience so you use the right photograph and the right image in the right way. If I'm talking about pro-guns and I'm talking to people that in general feel insecure and fear about a gun, I've chosen the wrong picture. So we want to make sure not only that the image imparts the values we want it to impart, we want to make sure that the image matches the audience as well. And I have a pretty good example of that one, of the importance of knowing your audience. This little guy, it's not necessarily an image that I would present, but I had been to a conference, and this little guy was handed out to all of us, and it represented a campaign by the Humane Society to ban lead bullets in California. And they were very, very successful. And part of that success was built on the fact that there was this cute little stuffed animal keychain that they handed out to people and legislators, and they would bring it to them. And when you accept a gift, it's a tricky thing in our minds. When we accept a gift from somebody, our mind has to justify why we accepted that gift. If we don't like them, if we hate them, chances are we're not going to accept a gift. So if we do accept a gift, this little eagle, then chances are somewhere in us we like them. And even more so if we take that gift, this cute little stuffed eagle, and give it to our children, which is what many of the legislators do. They look forward to the Humane Society coming around with it. And even more so with this lovely little eagle is that when you take it in and you accept it as a gift, at some point somewhere inside of you, you want to give something back. It's just human nature. And so they were very successful, the Humane Society, with this campaign, with this little eagle, and they banned lead bullets in California. And I thought, wow, this is just a great thing. I want to share this with the people that I'm training today. And in my excitement about using this as a tool to train, what I didn't do was think about my audience. And if I had thought for just a few minutes about my audience, I would have assumed, and I would have been correct, that much of my audience was probably going to be hunters. And those hunters probably weren't going to be happy with banning the lead bullets. And if I thought about that, I probably wouldn't have used this little stuffed eagle. And so I did use it, and what I managed to do probably within the first 2 minutes of my presentation, because I started off with my little eagle, was I alienated about a third of the room, to the point that some of them even held their iPads and their books in front of their faces while I was talking. I had a very strong image that was completely wrong for my audience. I learned a strong lesson that day. So you have to be consistent with your audience values. Whenever you use an image, think about what that image will mean to your audience. When you have a message, think about what that message will mean to your audience. Identify your audience, know your audience before you start to deliver your message. So these are just some values that are very, very important to American audiences. I think they can resonate with just about everyone. We just need to know who they resonate most with when we're thinking about the audiences we speak to. But if you can find photographs that convey things like defense and independence and trust, respect and strength, you're halfway there if you've identified those as important values to your audience. So you need to frame with the visual values that tell your story. And so I want to give you now, not just visual, but videos, because videos are important now as well when you're trying to convey a message to an audience. More and more, especially the younger your audience is, the more likely it is they're going to want to see videos. And so let's start with two videos that are not so different from what they are trying to convey, but are very, very different in message and tone. Here's video number 1. Okay, so now in reality, this is actually a 3-minute video. And with that music and the images that go back and forth, it's so powerful, it's almost impossible to sit through it for 3 minutes. For those of you who know the music and match it to the movie Platoon, that's the first time I heard that music invokes the scene of a soldier running from being killed by the other side, desperately trying to survive. So they've chosen incredibly powerful music that is incredibly sad, and decided to link it to happy pictures of your family and sad pictures of the world out there in the developing world that can't get the water opportunities that we have. So in a sense, they're using the photos, very strong images of family and children, to shame you into conserving water. Very strong message. Whether or not it works depends on the audience. Here's another one.
A quick turn of the spigot, and there it is. Safe, clean, reliable water. 24/7, 365 days a year. Always available at our homes, sustaining our businesses and farms, providing fire protection to our communities, and empowering San Diego's economy and quality of life. It seems so simple, but providing this vital resource to our region is an extraordinary task. Today, much of our water must be imported from hundreds of miles away, from the Colorado River or from Northern California. To move water where it's needed requires major infrastructure. Regional water agencies are also making major investments in new, local sources to improve water reliability. These include groundwater, conservation, seawater desalination, and recycled water. These new sources limit our dependence on imported water and will help meet the water needs of future generations. With some of our water systems nearly 100 years old, thousands of skilled, hard-working professionals are constantly at work to ensure a safe, clean water is delivered to our communities. And to guarantee our water meets all state and federal quality standards, individuals work to rigorously treat and test this important resource, providing peace of mind when we turn on the tap. Yet public water agencies don't make a profit. Every dollar from ratepayers is invested back into our reliable water supply. While providing water to our region is a major endeavor, it still only costs about a penny a gallon. Water. Now that's real value.
Okay. So now it's a very different video. It's a little bit longer, but it has a lot of energy. The music is energetic, some of the same visuals about children and water, but also stressing jobs and workers and growth and future and beauty and all of that. Lots and lots of values wrapped into it that will resonate with the audience. And it's basically not telling you that in order to keep this kind of infrastructure, we're going to have to pay an awful lot of money, and you, the citizen, is also going to have to pay a lot of money. What they are trying to do is get you engaged in a different issue, a different message. This is us. This is our growth. This is our future. It's for you. So it's a very different message, all built on images. So how do you think about structuring your message? Some of the ones that we've seen before are fairly complicated, and I doubt anybody's going to run out and do what San Diego has done with regard to creating that entire advertising spot. But there are some simple ways to think about how you might structure a message so that it resonates with your audience. So we're going to go over sort of a tale of two messages, as we did with the tale of two videos. The first message is something from the city of Regina. This is in Canada. They posted these in places like bus stations and public spots, and where people would walk by. There'd be a lot of foot traffic, and as they walked by, what would be the first thing that they would see? Obviously, the fish and the goldfish in the bowl in the pink water, and that doesn't make sense. And then they'd see there's no substitute for water. And they might see your water system as our priority, but it's more than likely 99.9% will never get to the language below that. So really what they're seeing is the image, which is somewhat humorous, and there's no substitute for water. Here's another one. There's no substitute for water. Your water system is our priority. And another. There's no substitute for water. Our water system is our priority. What are they doing here? If you look at the entire message, your water system is our priority. The message is, our aging water system requires major improvements to keep it running smoothly. We will invest $2 billion in our water, wastewater, and drainage systems so we can maintain our city's quality of life. You can't live without water. We're making sure it's always there. First off, within their message, it isn't their water system. It isn't the city of Regina's water system. It's your, mine, our water system. We're all in this together, right? We share the challenge together, our aging water system. Not theirs, not some city, organization, entity, agency. We are investing in our quality of life. Yes, we are going to ask you to pay more, probably, but it's an investment in our future, much the same way that you just saw in the ad from San Diego. Quality of life, very important language. You'll see it referenced over and over in many ads. Quality of life is important. And we're ensuring our safe future. So instead of it being about the water agency about to charge you more, they're talking about us, all of this, in it together, investing, preserving our quality of life, protecting ourselves, protecting us. That's their message. Here's another way it could be done. This is from an actual community, but the name has been changed to protect that community. But this is a true statement, or a true thing that was in their paper from the city budget office. Rate increases coming. Brownville Waterworks will request rate increases to pay for replacing mains and to offset a loss of revenue from declining sales. And if you look at 2013 to 2016, we're talking about an 18% increase. A lot, pretty big. So what do I see when I see this? What's their message? Brownville Waterworks, they will request a rate increase to pay for replacing mains. Want me to pay 18% more. That's how I read that. And to offset a loss of revenue from declining sales, because they lost revenue. So it's a very different way of structuring their message. There's nothing untrue about it. There's nothing untrue about the first one either. But they are saying and delivering their message in two very different ways. So when you think about how you want to message to your audience, sometimes it's useful to think of 3 steps. 1, how do you frame or reframe the problem? 2, how do you flip that solution so that it is something more positive, perhaps less onerous to your audience? And then finally, how do you generate positive action? Move your audience to do what you need them to do. So let's go back to There's No Substitute for Water and talk about how they developed their message in a problem solution action format versus perhaps what they could have said if they followed the Brownville example. So what is the problem really about? They could have said, the city has an aging system. It's true, it does. It needs to be fixed. But what they really said, they changed the problem to be something different. There is no substitute for water. And they drilled that in to the population who would walk by it every day. And they are not lying. There is no substitute for water. And that's what they want people to understand and take to heart. Yes, we have an aging system, and guess what? There's no substitute for water. What solution did they offer? Could have been, we got to pay for it. You have to pay $2 billion for the upkeep of its water system. But instead, the solution is, you can't live without water. We're making sure it's always there. Your water system is our priority. Okay. And what action are they asking them to take? They could say the city will have to pay $2 billion for the upgrades. But instead, they're asking the city to invest in our future so we can maintain our quality of life. So here's another way that a problem, solution, and action have been defined. If you aren't thinking about what your problem is and flipping it, what your solution is, making it something that tells your story better, and making an action that is something more positive for your audience, then someone else may decide to control the debate. So this is an actual incident with the city of Laguna Hills City Council. This is Andrew Blount. And what did he do with regard to defining the problem to help get him elected? Are your water bills drowning you? His solution? We must bring the full power of our city to stop the water districts from dictating our quality of life. And his action? Very simple. Vote for him. And yes, by the way, he did win. And I think I saw just about a month ago that he is considering running for governor of California. He ran on a very, very successful redefinition of the problem, solution, and action. He framed his message to resonate with an audience that was more than likely tired of paying higher water bills. And he took advantage of that fact. So finally, once you've got your message down, once you've developed a powerful problem, solution, and action approach, you need to repeat your message. Much like the city of Regina, no substitute for water, no substitute for water, no substitute for water. Let's look at Denver. From 2006 to 2013, they have had a very successful water conservation campaign based on humorous messaging as well as a very, very strong message itself. So this is starting in 2006. Use only what you need. 2007, save water. Use only what you need. 2008, beginning to define the problem as well as the action. Broken sprinklers waste water. Use only what you need. Grass is dumb. Water, 2 minutes or less. Your lawn won't notice. Use only what you need. Why trash an old billboard when you can reuse it? Problem, solution, waste is out. Action, use only what you need. How much water you give your lawn, how much it really needs. Use only what you need. Water less, use only what you need. And then finally in 2013, the official sprinkler of summer 2013, and then not use only what you need, but because of the drought situation worsening, use even less. And people already know what that means because for years they've heard use only what you need. So finally, I'm going to leave you with one last message and one last video to think about how to use humor, messaging, and video to get out your side of the story.
Man, I have had a lot of water.
Me too, man. I've had a lot of water.
Oh, sweet Mary. Not a little too much.
Thank you very much. And I know, Lisa, you have a last poll to add before we turn it over to questions and answers. So why don't I turn it back to you?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That last video actually really made me chuckle.
I hope it did.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sarah. That was an awesome presentation. Folks, please type your questions into the questions box, and I will read them out loud for Sarah to answer. And before we get to questions, I do have two more poll questions for you. These are regarding technical assistance that the Environmental Finance Center Network can offer to you. So these questions only apply to water systems and small water systems. So if you're not a water system, you can just ignore this, but I'm going to launch the first question now. It's for systems serving 10,000 or fewer people. Do you want one-on-one help with developing a budget for your water system, calculating key financial indicators, how future capital projects will impact your revenue needs, setting rates, or determining affordable rates for your customers? So if you'd like help with one of those, just select it and we will follow up with you after our webinar today. I'm going to wait a few more seconds. Okay, thank you. And I just have one more. Very similar question, just different areas that we offer technical assistance in. And the choices for this one are creating an asset management inventory, understanding your system's water loss, managing the energy use of your system, or understanding available loan and grant programs. So again, if you'd like help in any of those areas, check the box and we'll follow up after the webinar. I will wait a few more seconds. Okay, thank you everyone. At this point I don't see any questions that have been entered. So Sarah, if you have any other closing remarks. Oh wait, here's one, sorry, just came in. Okay, this question comes from Jay Mashburn, and Jay asks, Is it best to work on the problem framing, solution proposing, and action steps as a single person or as a committee? What is the best formula for committee composition?
Boy, that's actually a really good question, because when you do it by yourself, chances are you may not be able to identify sort of the different aspects of what your audience is about. When we actually give this training across the country, part of what we do is talk about personality types, because some people receive things very well in a visual sense, some people receive them better in a numbers sense, some people need to hear things with more emotion or less emotion. So if you have a varied group of personality types coming together, you'll get much better input on how your audience is going to receive things, and how you might actually, you can have the same message with different visuals, so that when you're talking about the problem, the different visuals reach different personality types. So I would never really try to do it by yourself, and if you do it by yourself, test it on people that you think are really different from you to see how they receive it.
Okay, marvelous. We have another question here. This question comes from Laura Jenkins. And first of all, Laura says, thanks for another great webinar. And then she asks, will we be able to watch it again online and or share with others who could use this info? And Laura, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. You will find a recording and the slides from today's webinar on the Environmental Finance Center Network website at efcnetwork.org. The follow-up email from today's webinar will include a link to access that, and you can go ahead and share that with anybody you like. Okay, we have another question here, and this comes from Paul Suska. Paul asks, Sarah, do you know of any regional or statewide information campaigns with value of water messages that are broader than water infrastructure services, campaigns that you think are good models?
You know, I have been spending a lot of time over the past year looking for those campaigns. And outside of the Denver one, you know, there are a lot of sort of effective public service announcements that you can go to on YouTube if you do like water conservation PSA, that type of thing, water pollution PSA. You'll find sort of individual commercials, but it's been really tough to find what I think are good sort of visual, value-laden, not reliant on charts and graphs type presentations. So I'm actually keeping my eye out to introduce to you some of the best ones that I've found. And since this is a small water system presentation, I'm trying to make it so that we aren't just doing major cities who can afford to put out these really, really good campaigns. So I have to say, no, I haven't found any really good, strong ones at, say, the smaller community level. So I would actually throw it back out to everybody who is out there. If you have ever seen one, please send me an email. Let me use it and let me share it, because we're looking hard for these things, and it's not easy to find, especially for communities that are strapped for cash.
All right, and that's all the questions that have been entered at this time. I just also want to mention to everyone that there is a evaluation survey link that I am sending to you all in your chat box. And if you could please just take a moment out of your busy schedule and complete this survey, it would really help us. We really value your feedback. It'll also be sent in the follow-up email as well. You should get that about an hour after today's webinar. And I think that's it. Sarah, do you have anything else?
Nope, just thank you everybody for attending.
Yes, thank you all so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yep. Bye-bye.